This episode begins with a very brutal fight between Conquest and Mark. Just as they exchange fists, it shattered glasses and brought a lot of buildings down. Conquest easily overpowers Mark and tells him that viltrumites like Anissa would tell him how great the viltrumite empire is, and will advise him to resist, but not for Conquest. He really wants Mark to resist. He is actually not here to save him or to spread the greatness of the viltrum empire. He is here because he really enjoys this. To Conquest, there is no greater pleasure than feeling the warmth of his fists drenched in blood. Before he could finish talking, Mark lands another punch on his face, and uses his body to bring down skyscrapers. Conquest doesn't fight back, but he seems to be really enjoying Mark just throwing punches at him. Mark throws Conquest to the sky and punches him to space. To Mark's surprise, Conquest uses the blood in his mouth to blow a bubble, then uses it to create a love symbol. Like, what kind of maniac is this? Playtime is over for Conquest, as he uses a very massive speed to push Mark back to Earth and punches Mark so hard that it tore half of his mask. Debbie and Oliver are devastated watching Mark getting the beating of his life on the news. Oliver wants to go help Mark in the fight. Debbie stops him, not because she doesn't want him to go, but she advises that when he is fighting Conquest, he should always keep moving and keeping his distance. He should not let the viltrumite grab him. And if it's too dangerous, he should get out of there. Debbie cries because this fight might not end well, but Paul tells her that her boys are strong. They have been in situations before and made it through. Mark wakes up from unconsciousness just from that punch, and he knows he is really screwed when he noticed the ground shaking. Conquest descends from the ground and lands another punch on Mark, a punch that caused a massive earthquake. Oliver sees this and is so desperate to arrive there to help his brother. Mark lost control of his body as he is being thrown from one building to the other. Just after a very serious beating, Mark begs Conquest to stop and listen to him. Conquest instantly slams Mark to the ground and tells him that he will never give him a chance to surrender, because he is having the time of his life here. He instead begs Mark not to give up fighting, that he might still have a chance to win. He tells Mark that when he is done with him, he is going to kill everyone else. Before Conquest could complete his statement, Oliver shows up and punches Conquest away from his brother. He tried to land another blow, but Conquest slams him to the floor and holds his leg. Mark sees this and punches Conquest away. He tells Oliver to get out of here, but Oliver is so confident that both of them together can take down Conquest. Conquest grabs Mark, calling him an idiot, because he is going to need all the help he can get in this fight. He asks Mark where his viltrumite heart is. Until he sees it beating in his hand, he wouldn't believe he has won. He throws Mark in different direction, telling him to show him his power and rage. Mark suddenly nods Conquest on his head, and for sure, Conquest felt a little power in that. Mark started to punch him repeatedly while Conquest just doesn't do anything but allows him to do his thing. He later gets bored and tells Mark that if this is all the power he has, this fight is not going to end well for him. Cecil is afraid because the strongest being he has ever seen is beating the shit out of their strongest hero in the planet. He asks Sinclair whether he is done with making reanimants for the fight. Sinclair tells him it's going to take 2 weeks before he is done because he is upgrading them. Cecil gets frustrated and leaves. Eve parents watches the news in the hospital of another superpowered being beating the shit out of Mark, and was like, when is all these is going to stop? Eve suddenly gains consciousness, and her dad hurries to call the doctor. She immediately remembers what happened, and asks where Mark is. Her mother tells her not to worry as this is a special place, they are keeping her identity secret. Eve suddenly looks at the TV, and sees Conquest brutalizing Mark. Eve immediately uses her powers to create a replacement leg and wants to go help Mark, even though her parents begs her to calm down, because she can barely walk yet. Conquest wonders why they sent him here, because beating Mark and conquering the planet is just way too easy for him. He also tells Mark that Nolan is dead. He was executed before he came to Earth. Oliver intervenes in the fight again. He tells Mark that he can't fight him alone, and they have a chance to win because Conquest is old as dirt. Conquest replies that he might be old, but he is not weak. He tells Oliver that he is going to split him in half and eat his heart. Mark tells Conquest not to lay his hand on Oliver, but Conquest slams him to the next building and tells him to get a break while he focuses on the boy. Only one punch from Conquest removes all Oliver's teeth. He grabs Oliver and slowly began to tear him into two. Mark sees this and stops Conquest despite his very fatal injury. Cecil shows up with his team and tells them to get Oliver ready for transport for immediate treatment. Donald calls Cecil to tell him that Eve is awake and is asking to speak to him. Cecil warns Eve that Conquest is the strongest viltrumite they have ever seen, and even stronger than Nolan, so it will be so deadly for her to fight him. Eve tells him she can rearrange matter and can possibly stop Conquest, only Mark is out there and he needs help. Conquest takes Mark to the beach and uses his face to tear everyone there to pieces. Eve shows up to Mark's rescue, but Mark becomes more scared for her life. He holds Conquest and tells Eve to get away from here, but Conquest uses his fingers to break Mark's leg. Eve uses her powers to make an amour for herself, and just as Conquest was about to land a blow, he realizes he can't move his body anymore. She tells Conquest that she has increased the density of the air, her powers has all kinds of tricks. She uses her powers to create weapons to fight him, but that was able to hold him for a little while. Mark wants to help, but he can't do anything now because his leg is broken. Eve did what no one expected, she even put up a better fight than Mark here. She keeps creating weapons and slamming Conquest from one place to the other. Just as she tried to finish him off with a gigantic arrow, Conquest destroys it with one hand, and grabs her. He destroys her amour and does the most diabolical thing ever, by ripping her guts out of her body as she falls to her death. Mark catches her and cries, begging her not to die. He calls out to Cecil crying, saying he needs him. Mark tells Conquest that he doesn't care how strong he is or how fast he is, but he can see the future that Conquest won't live to see tomorrow. Mark uses all the strength in his body and clashes it with Conquest's fist. Although Mark's hand got broken from that, he also broke Conquest's iron arm too. He uses his other hand to punch blood out of Conquest's mouth. Conquest holds him and says getting mad doesn't make him stronger, but Mark uses his teeth to bite his shoulder. Mark gets distracted as he sees Eve elevating herself to the sky to heal her injuries. Conquest uses the chance to grab him, and just as he is about to kill Mark, he decided to give Mark one secret that he should take to his grave. He tells Mark that he is so lonely, all the other viltrumites are so scared of him, and no one doesn't want to talk to him because of his brutality. Just as he almost ripped off Mark's head, Eve uses a very powerful energy to roast away the skin of Conquest. Conquest tells her he is going to make sure she's dead, but Mark's anger grows more. Even though Conquest broke his fist, Mark uses his head to nod Conquest repeatedly until he kills him. He meets Eve and is shocked how she's still alive. He tells her he loves her, before he falls into an unconscious mode. Cecil arrives with other heroes to help them out, but Mark and Eve has already gotten the job done. Eve goes to stay with Mark at the hospital. Mark asks her how she was able to survive. Eve replies that she was given powers when she was still in the womb, but they put in mental blocks to limit what she can do. That's the only reason she can't change sentient matter. But when something traumatic happened, it override those blocks and she can use her powers without limitations. Cecil tells Sinclair to hurry with his project on making the reanimants, because he believes more viltrumite might be on their way to Earth anytime soon. Debbie goes to meet Mark at the hospital and tells him how sorry she is. When she married his father, she didn't know the life she was giving him, or the responsibility he has. But Mark replied that she did everything right and shouldn't blame herself. Cecil also goes to see Mark to tell him Oliver is okay. Mark asks Cecil where Conquest is, his body. He looks at Conquest's body in disgust and hatred, and leaves telling Cecil to burn the body. Everyone gathered to say a memorial to Rex, who sacrificed himself in battle. Eve cries because she once loved Rex even though he cheated on her so many times. Everything happened so fast because she never got to say goodbye. But Mark smiles because after everything that happened, she's still here with him. They both kissed and this led to them having sex. But peace is not restored to the city yet, because we see some Martians possessing the body of some human. In space we see Battle Beast frozen, but some traveler sees him and takes him inside their ship where he is revealed to still be alive. Cecil plans to revive Conquest, so he can interrogate him into telling him everything about the Viltrum Empire and how to stop them. Mark goes to see Oliver, who is so excited that he will leave the hospital tomorrow. Mark tells Oliver he is right, because sparing criminals only get more people killed. He promises himself that if anyone ever puts his family or anyone he loves at risk, he won't hesitate to kill them. Thank you for watching, guys. If you love animation movies, please subscribe to this channel and keep watching. Bye.